Furthermore, considering the gravity of the letter Paul is sending to Galatia, where are the big bad elders? Think for a moment about the so-called biblical role of elders in the church. So I've got this meme, all right? So, I mean, in church today, I mean, we all know what I teach on that and the whole authority issue. Where are the all-important authoritative elders, right? They're written about 4 times in the whole New Testament. Okay? In 2 letters to the problematic church at Corinth, think about this. The letters to Corinth and all of the stinking craziness that was going on there, totally out of control. They are not mentioned once. Okay? In Paul's justification magnum opus, the book of Romans, they are not mentioned once. Okay? In Paul's submission structure, this is a structure of submission of Ephesians 5 and 6, they're not in there. All right? In Peter's submission structure of 1 Peter 2nd and 1 Peter 2 and 3, chapters 2 and 3, they're nowhere in there. Okay? Then this whole motif that Matthew 18 is this God-appointed tool of the elders to discipline the church and keep the church in order, okay? They're not in there. They're not mentioned once, okay? But here's what they do. Wherever you see church in Matthew 18, Christ isn't really talking about church. Well, to begin with, church is not a Bible word, okay? The word church doesn't show up in the Bible till the 3rd or 4th century, okay? Church really means elders. Got that? Church doesn't really mean church there. It means elders. Boy, isn't that a stretch, right? And by the way, that is a twofold distancing from reality, because church there doesn't mean church to begin with. But then it somehow mysteriously means elder. It's ridiculous. Okay? Go ahead.
I just need some clarification. You're talking about Matthew 18, that the term elder is not mentioned in that passage of Scripture.
The word's not in there,
It's
right? Or any semblance.
But if the word church is there in Matthew 18,
yeah.
To whom is that referring?
The ecclesia.
Okay, the body of believers.
The body of believers.
Not the elders.
So if someone offends you, go to them alone. Okay? If they blow you off, or tell you to take a hike, or take a long walk off a short pier, hanging on your beak, alright? You go, you take a witness, a fellow believer. You mean an elder? No, a fellow believer. Okay? And then if they won't hear the 2 of you, and gosh, I don't want to get down a rabbit track, but think about the genius of this. Okay? When you have a problem with someone and you don't go to them alone and you go to everyone else but them, what is that?
Gossip.
It's gossip. Okay? So, not only that, the genius of this, you go to them alone and you find out most of the time that it was all a misunderstanding anyway. Okay? Especially if somebody, oh my goodness, if people would use this in the career that I'm in being a nurse aide. Oh my goodness. Okay? I gave up I resigned myself a long time ago that I was not going to address what other aides said about me. I'm just not going to address it. Okay? I mean, I've been called into a DON's office and it's my understanding, blah, 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 and it's like, okay. Well, what do you say? Okay, they told you that. I won't even defend myself. Okay? Basically, you know, but long story short here, you know, if you go to them alone, you find out that it was all a misunderstanding to begin with. Then, if you bring a second person in, a lot of times that person will say, okay, what happened? What do you want to go talk to them about? Okay. And you kind of have to put your arm around them and say, you're being petty. I love you, but you're being petty. Okay? And if you don't have bigger fish to fry other than being offended by that, you're not busy enough. Okay? So you see the genius of this whole thing. So, but if everything's on the up and up, the guy, you know, it's legitimate, you worked for the guy in the ecclesia or your home group, your home fellowship, and he stiffed you and he's not going to pay you, whatever, totally legitimate. So the two of you go and that person is a witness and you can bring one or two people actually. If the person won't hear you then, who do you go to? You go to the ecclesia.
And that's
the entire group.
The assembly of believers.
Right.
Not the elders. You
Right.
don't go to the pastor, you don't go to the deacons, you don't go to the elders.
Right.
Because they're in Matthew 18, they're not present in this process.
Right. Right. And this is a good discussion. We're down a rabbit track. We probably won't get through the lesson again. But it's a good discussion, and it needs to be talked about. All right? Well, Paul, you know, what are you going to do in a church of 5,000 people? Get up and tell everybody? Well, I don't know why not. But it does bolster the argument that churches aren't churches to begin with, and secondly, they don't need to be 2,000 to 5,000 people or even 1,000 people. There's small home groups. Now, if you got a small home group, okay, if you got a small home group that is considered to be literally family, doesn't that make perfect sense that you would go to the small group? All right. And if the person won't hear them, there's no excommunication. You're not telling them they're not saved. You're not taking their salvation away. What we've learned about in regard to family, okay, there's times when you got to separate yourself from certain family members, okay, until they wise up. And least of all, enable them to do whatever they're doing, right? Okay? So in a home fellowship setting where the mentality is that you're a literal family and you're meeting in a home from time to time, all of a sudden going to the ecclesia with this problem amongst family and everybody knows everybody, it makes perfect sense, right?
It does. Well, in Matthew 18, it says, you tell that person if he neglects to hear you and your two witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You tell them, we have not resolved this issue.
Right.
And then you let them know, I am going to take it to the assembly, to the body of believers, and we're going to discuss it there.
Right.
If he refuses, it says here, if he neglects to hear what the body of believers have to say, then this is where you were talking about, sometimes we have to separate ourselves from family members who are not
Right.
following the truth.
Because enablement isn't love.
Right.
And accepting them for whatever they are and what they're doing isn't love.
The
Okay.
verse is really neat because it says, you treat them.
Mm-hmm.
You're not calling them a
Mhm.
heathen, and you're not calling them a tax collector.
Right.
But Matthew is saying you treat them as
Like.
if they were a heathen and a tax collector. Well, in your mind, how do you treat a person who's a heathen? How do you treat the IRS knocking at your door? You want to stay away from them.
Right.
You don't fellowship with
Right.
them.
Right.
You remove yourself in love from their fellowship until they come, not you, they come to the realization of changes that need to be made, and then come back and to the assembly and rejoin the fellowship.
Right. And, you know, the way the so-called church does all this is completely upside down. Ultimately, the elders decide
Right.
who's disfellowshipped and who's not. And a lot of times, it's kept from the congregation what's going on. Okay, so Paul's entire point with these passages is that this historical ditty he does here is to make the point that what he believed in his ministry wasn't based on the traditions of men and the authority of men, but was based on the authority of God alone, lest authority becomes truth. And clearly, authority has become truth, okay, in institutions, okay? And then people stop reading their Bibles, and these guys get away with all kinds of stuff. I mean, Jack Hyles got up in front of 5,000-6,000 people on a Sunday and said, "Now everybody close your Bibles and listen to me." And these guys get away with this stuff. Why? Because they're authorities. And Christ said that he was the only authority. Okay? And by the way, heaven and earth. All right? So in the beginning of Galatians, we made the point that ultimately the judge of what truth is and truth isn't is you. Because you're the one that gives an account and no one else. All right?